the Supreme Court. Christopher Strunk, welcome to the show.
Good afternoon. I'm standing out in front of the National Post Office Museum next to Union Station, waiting for a train in an hour. So you've got me for as long as you want. And it's not raining, which makes it easier.
You ran into procedural problems with the way that you had to file this writ of mandamus so that the courts, the Supreme Court, could rule that we need to have paper backup and for all elections. And I think this is a great thing, and it's just a tremendously patriotic thing that you've done. We're all excited. Our listeners are all excited. And we gave them kind of the update, and we talked with James Miller. I think you might have heard some of those tapes, and Michael McKibben. But now we want to hear what's happening with you, what happened today, and give us a rundown.
Well, the key to all of this is always make yourself injured. For years, I've been trying to protect absentee ballots, et cetera, and being a veteran, the veterans have been ripped off continuously in New York, at least for the last 30 years that I know of. So I voted absentee. I told Bill to do it too, but he didn't do it. I filed my absentee ballot on the 22nd of October, and my son, I got a phone call from the Glen Falls Board of Elections. They wanted to see my ID. They wanted ID. So my son and I went up there and and I mean, you'd think that anybody can register to vote, but not anybody can register to vote by absentee. So,
and Chris, is it the absentee ballots that don't have a proper chain of custody? Is that why you go after absentee ballots?
Yes. And it's interesting that you cannot just put it in an envelope without somebody signing that you did. So there's a chain of custody on the whole thing. And she called me up. She was so surprised. Anyway, I went up there. I mean, she put my name into the system, and I'm sure it upset her. And I beat her for $2 because she notarized my affidavit, so that worked out just fine in the writ. So that's the actual Democrat member of the Board of Elections in Warren County. So I became an absentee voter, and so I have standing to be worried, whereas Bill is not part of what I filed in Washington today because he held back on his absentee voter. So it's me against Roberts, right? John Roberts.
Won't be the first time that you've gone up against him, and I think you know how to hit the pitch that he's pitching.
Right. Well, I've been in the PDF that I sent you. I sent you the front piece of the two writs that I filed at the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Armed Forces in 2016. And they're both in there, Exhibits A and B. And one of them was to safeguard the veterans' absentee votes again. The second one was to go after General Miley, who was allowing theft as per what Skidmore was complaining about with the $21 trillion. Well, that was actually a suit of ours in 2016 in the Court of Appeals for the Armed Forces. Anyway, there's a rule, since all courts, except for the Supreme Court, are Article I courts, except for the IRS, which is still trying to figure that one out. That's an Article II court. And the chief judge of the Supreme Court, the only Article III court which has equity. No, there's no equity in our country anymore since 1938. And there's no common law. That was outlawed. So what we have is CPLR and federal rules and is the Administrative Procedures Act, and that's what we go by. So what goes on is that since we're under a military government and the military courts are under John Roberts as the chief judge, just like FISA is directly under John Roberts, he appoints all the judges, and so it is what's called Rule 22-3, so that anything having to do with the military court goes directly to him, and it can be done on a on a single judge application, and that's what I filed today. I sent over the PDF of that and the whole writ of the Washington writ, in re Christopher Earl Strunk, to Tile. I sent that over. I'd be, go ahead and put it up. I don't have anything to hide, and certainly I've been on the internet for the last 30 years. You can protect yourself by being up and above, okay, and it's you can be transparent and protect yourself. So,
what do you mean by being just honest all the time?
No, I mean I don't mind people seeing my signature. I don't mind people, seeing my address, etc. That's okay, no problem.
Well, we told you that people had written that they were concerned about you and they didn't want you to give out too much personal information because what you're doing is so rare and so beautiful and it's such a patriotic act that they want to protect you. And then when we mentioned this to you, you burst out laughing just like you are right now. It's like, I guess you're like me. It's like, it's okay, take me down. There'll be another one stand up and do my job right after me. So it doesn't matter. So why are you laughing? You're not worried?
Anybody who's done any court case, as many court cases as I have, all of that personal information, except for medical records, are available through the court system. You can FOIA it. You can get that record. I had family court cases. I've had.
You are everywhere on the internet. All they have to do is Google your name, and they're going to see so many court cases. They don't have time in the rest of their life to read all of them. And this is the beautiful thing.
Right.
And
I didn't have enough space to put all the cases up. I even forgot the important one.
And the beauty of it is, courts that exist that other people don't even know exist, like this Organization of American States Court that you're going to go to next.
The Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, which came in 1960, around the same time that Eisenhower did his Beware of the Military-Industrial Complex. Now, is that the corporate structure had taken over everything, and that he was very concerned, and that the corporations control the courts. They control all administrative process through the Senior Executive Service as of 1978.
Amen. And you are preaching my language. Thank you.
Right, and you can't hide from it. And matter of fact, I always wear a tie, so I look good. And
a bow tie or a straight tie?
Well, I like bow ties and straight ties, but when I want to look like a Democrat, I wear a blue one. When I want to look like a Republican, I wear a red one.
So when you filed in the Supreme Court today, what color did you wear? Were you a Democrat?
A red tie.
A red tie.
Red tie.
I think it's a very red thing that what you're doing.
On Monday, I had a purple tie. So
oh, that's
funny. I've been here twice this week. I've had enough for the entire year. It's and there's 6,000 taxis, and they're all red, and they're all stealing from each other because they can't find a ride. Right.
Yeah, so, you've been on the train, you've been on the taxis all over, you've been going all up and down the East Coast. Had to go back and file in a totally different way because they gave you a little hard time. As, procedural problems that they can throw at you are probably infinite, and yet I guess you're very good at dodging those bullets. So you turned right around in one day and you submitted, so you are on the docket of the Supreme Court for John Roberts. Is that correct?
By rule, it has to go to Roberts because I did work at the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Armed Forces, and that's the rule 22.3.
And that's because it's national security. Is that why?
It says the clerk shall. It says the clerk shall give it to the chief judge when the Court of Appeals is involved. The clerks are overruled by 22.3. It's a very interesting rule. I was using Rule 20 before, and which is a lot more difficult. But anyway,
the writ of mandamus points out the executive order of Trump showing that he's basically said anyone is going to be prosecuted who meddles in our election, and that it is literally a national security issue. And literally, we are in at least 2 states of national emergency that I know that he's instituted in executive orders. So you pointed all that out.
24 of them.
24 of them.
There's 24 of them.
And those are continuous, right?
You go to the Federal Register, look on a continuous emergency, and then a new national emergency. So this election stuff is new. Okay, there's 24 of them. I haven't checked it for a month. There were 19 a month and a half ago. Okay, but that was before he did the election one on the 12th. So that falls in under the National Emergency Act of 1977 and the Trading with the Enemy Act, and all that's mentioned in the beginning of every executive order. It's all under military guidelines.
That's beautiful.
So,
and you submitted to the Supreme Court today. Did you also,
yes,
like you did before, submit to other places?
Well, I served the Solicitor General. I served Nitwit, or Nick, who is the General Counsel for DGS. I served the Chief Clerk of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Armed Forces. If he had been there, he would have docketed it instead of this silly lawyer woman who was just a docketing clerk. It's unheard of that a docketing clerk would write a memo, right? It was humorous. If the actual clerk who knows me had been there, he would have given her a number, and then he would have dismissed it, right? And then I could have taken it to the Supreme Court, or for a certiorari, right? So I served the clerk of the armed forces. I served five state governors, the ones that only have DRE voting. I served. See, who else did I serve? I served 10 people. And
did you serve Pence?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Pence. How could I forget Pence? You're right. Yeah, right. He had the commission, but they ran away with their tail between their legs, and they closed that the commission on election integrity on the 3rd of January, and the chickens.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I served Pence.
Good.
But that's okay. And I served the Inter-American Commission, which is here in D.C. It's been here. It's an organization, American States.
Hearing those words makes a patriot's heart jump for joy. I'm telling you, it's like kindling the fire in the heart that a patriot, that we the people, that a humble, non-lawyer person, non-esquire, Christopher Strunk, served these people. They're the ones who usually tell us what to do as if we are their slaves. And you've turned around and turned the tables on them, which I'm really very pleased. And I just want to say, for those people who are want to discourage what we are supporting here, this is cumulative, exactly as you said before. You can build on this for the next election, showing that they did nothing with it if they do nothing this time, and or whatever actions they take, you can build on. And that's what people don't understand. Legal actions don't go away. You can keep building on them. And so this isn't about just this midterm election. This is about all elections from now on out. Either we want a paper backup, or we will simply discard those votes because we can't say that there's been a true chain of custody that's bipartisan, that has not been put into a space where it can be digitally manipulated. And so what you've done is brilliant, and it's a beautiful first step that really I don't think the Supreme Court or any other court could have any justification for saying no. So for those who are naysayers, or those who don't think that what you're doing is extraordinary and it's beautiful, remember, it's building on what Christopher has already done before, and he's probably going to continue building on it in the future. Am I correct, Christopher?
Yeah, it's a sort of Solzhenitsyn thing, you know?
What is that?
You know what I mean?
No, that one you got me. I usually catch your references.
The Gulag Archipelago.
Oh, okay, yes, right, yes. It's Soviet.
Right.
We're becoming so Soviet every day. It's disturbing. I can't decide.
It's upsetting, yes.
What do you think? Are we more communist totalitarian, or are we more kind of the old Russian Soviet new oligarch kind of thing? I don't know.
Well, the American blue bloods were always communists. They were putting all these people in place. In communism, the party bosses eat and everybody else works, and and certainly feudalism is very clear. They're feudalists, and it's a form of feudalism. The Carnegie Foundation people, and the Bush family, the blue blood. We call them the blue bloods here on the East Coast, and they're in for controlling the plantation. That's all, and their problem is that they hooked up to the Father Beckex, and Marx at the British Museum. Marx was a failure, and that nothing he ever did was working. But Mussolini wasn't. Mussolini was brilliant, and FDR, after the fail of the National Recovery Act, he adopted all of Mussolini's programs starting in 34, 35. And that, the agricultural stuff was all Soviet stuff, the Lenin program where everybody was ending up starving, look, I think that that it's essential that the court system be exposed and that people use it in such a way that you overwhelm them through 1,000 paper cuts. And as Bill Van Allen would say,
I love that. I love that. Now, you know these people, and you know the senior executive service, and you know this bureaucratic machine that slow walks everything. You've worked with them. They know you. They fear you when you come in, whether you're in a bow tie, a red tie, or a blue tie, because you know who they are. And do you think that through your actions, that over time you're breaking down these career politicians who make sure that nothing ever changes, these senior executive service members?
Well, when I look at Dinesh D'Souza, who was in the first Reagan administration, he certainly has a professor over at King's College in Brooklyn. He has gotten his history down square. He's very good. His history is very good. He's been banned. His movie Death of a Nation has been banned in New York, and it started on the 30th of October, and it's been banned. Literally, there's nobody covering that movie, and it shows documents that the slavery certainly existed 190 years before the Declaration of Independence, and it was run by various vested interests. But that it's a good movie. I haven't seen it yet because I can't find a movie theater that's playing it. But that Death of the Nation, and it goes through the extreme detail on proving that the Democratic Party really, he doesn't say it, but the Democratic Party should have been shut down in 1865 as a terrorist organization. The problem with that is most of the members of the Democrats for Tammany Hall and everything on Lincoln's side. Lincoln's vice president was a Democrat. Grant was a Democrat. McClellan was a Democrat. They're all Democrats. So, it's poison stuff, So I don't know, but I have faith that I have somewhere to go other than this, and Roberts knows it. He doesn't want to be any further embarrassed, and he has power and he has the ability to use it now. Whether he does or not, we're going to see. But go ahead and put that thing up. Don't worry about protecting my personal information. And my personal information's in my head. As my wife says, in the Soviet Union, anything that's in your stomach is yours. Anything outside of your head or your stomach is theirs. Okay? And that's the way it works.
What was your position in the military? What was your position?
I was E5. Mm-hmm. I was Air Force E5. And they wanted me to go into intelligence. I probably should have. But anyway, my father was the head of the anti-war movement out of New York City, and he disowned me. So, I've taken some hits. Air Force, well, what can I say? I mean, everybody ends up working for idiots. It's what the Peter principle, you rise to the level of your incompetence, and then you go sideways. And then that's the Peter principle came out in the 50s.
Oh, absolutely.
It couldn't be truer. couldn't be truer. And that's the real enemy, is this frigging, it's breaking through stupidity.
Yeah.
And stupidity controls the reins of power. That's who the communists are, stupid. And, but, you know, nobody really understands. Nobody's truly understood communism. I grew up surrounded by all Plekhanov and all these books. You know, my father read them all. And very few people understand what it is. And they don't move on beyond it, you know, and they're not active. They're manipulated like puppets. So I will certainly keep you up to date. I sent you over the PDF, and nobody should worry about me. God takes care of me. I can document that. Okay.
And you proved that God existed last time. A lot of people got a great laugh out of that one.
Well, no, whenever I need anything, it comes to me. And I'm self-employed. I've been self-employed since I left the state in 91.
That's beautiful.
Started HUD work. I was a HUD contractor.
You were in the military. You know the senior executive service even controls the military. You're working inside of the system, against the system. So are you chipping away at the senior executive service? Are we going to see an end to these people who come in and take over all the head positions in every single federal agency and basically make sure that they continue the same status quo that has always been? Are you breaking through? Are you chipping away at that? Are you seeing some results?
Yeah, well, one thing I've learned a long time ago is that you don't fool with policy. You know, policy is policy. Nobody touches policy. But what you can do is be so efficient and so productive that they start changing policy. So to slow everything down, right? It's like my friend Chris Garvey, who's running for Attorney General. He went with me in 2016 he's got a mariner's license. And he's running for Attorney General. He's on the ballot here, or else he would have been with us. You know, he's an attorney. He's a patent attorney. I think he's spoken to Mike McKibben. You know, he was the guy that used the Miller Act to prove that the Sidewinder Dayton system was stolen from his client. And now, look, as Chris says, he said, whenever you understand how the law works, they change it.
That's right. That's right.
So the more efficient you are, the quicker they have to change. And the quicker they have to change, the less control they have, because they have to learn policy changes themselves. And one thing I like about policy, like history, it has a life of its own. That's H.G. Wells, right?
That's beautiful.
If you understand history, you can use it as a weapon, because it has social consequences.
Wow.
And that's what we're experiencing.
Well, that's what you're doing.
So,
you're using the historical perspective so that you can frame your lawsuits and this writ of mandamus that you wrote to basically say, yes, Mr. President, we are in a state of emergency, and you are looking for the corruption and in the election. Well, here it is, and you ask for it,
here it is, yeah.
And we are giving it to you. So what you've done is incredibly significant. Thank you for being the man on the ground, our man in Washington, D.C., going after the Supreme Court, the Homeland Security.
Don't send me again this week.
No, not that.
I've had enough of it today.
No.
I've had enough of it.
You do not need to go again this week. And we just want to thank you, all of our followers, which is a whole bunch of people. Really respect what you're doing. And I know that that Betsy and her team are so thankful for the stuff that you're sending. We're going to keep posting it. We're going to keep pushing this out. Right up to the moment of this election, we are calling basically an alert. This is a call to arms, really, a call to consciousness to say, focus on these elections. Do everything you can in your capacities to stand up against this corruption and these election meddling, and do whatever you can in your area. Your area is in law, and in doing this writ of mandamus, we just want to salute you, Christopher. You're a true American patriot, and we just can't wait for you to come on over to the conclave, because we're going to give you both types of cheesecake, okay? But we are not going to use Egyptian yeast, because, that stuff is 2,000 years old. We want to get some fresh yeast for you.
Well, look, I'm. It was a pleasure that I met you, and I'm just. Everybody should go out and be a poll watcher on the 2nd, okay?
Beautiful.
And That's the truth. And I have a couple interesting cases back that went before Sotomayor. The Europeans were here observing our elections in New York, and I objected to it. So